Hi everyone, my name is Iben and welcome to another episode of the Road to Planet Zoo 2. In this episode I want to talk about a feature that was mentioned in the survey that Frontier put out a few months ago, and that's the availability of staff vehicles. It's a feature that I never really gave much thought before, but honestly, the idea of it has been growing on me, so let's jump in and talk about that. But before we start and talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about a piece of feedback that I've heard a lot in the Planet Coaster community about Planet Zoo, and I swear it has something to do with staff vehicles. Because a very common piece of feedback that the Planet Coaster players had on Planet Zoo is that Planet Coaster feels more alive. And honestly, I really didn't get that feedback for a very long time. I never understood what they meant by that until Planet Coaster 2 was released and I started to realize what they really meant. Because the majority of your time in these games you spend in an overhead view. Instead of walking around in the guest view, you spend a lot of your time building and you look at things from a top view. And that's where Planet Coaster does have the benefit over Planet Zoo. Because as you can see here in the background, you have the coaster moving around, you have fireworks, you have more attractions in the background. There's a whole lot of movement and kineticism that just really seems to work, and you can always see it from this top view. When we now move over to Planet Zoo, this is less the case. The majority of the animals that we can see are the medium to larger animals like the tapirs here and the elephants, but if an animal is further down the park, then you don't see them as much and the amount of movement easily gets lost. I don't think that's a bad thing per se, because I do believe that this is realistic and I do still want a lot of smaller sized animals that will easily get lost inside the foliage that you've placed down in your zoo. That is realistic and that's how it should be. But I do understand the criticism and the feedback that Planet Coaster 2 players have had on Planet Zoo. That if you're used to seeing your park have so much movement, then all of a sudden that falls flat in Planet Zoo, where a lot of the movement is hidden behind a lot of foliage. And that's where I think the staff vehicles might be an answer to this. If you have some boldly colored cars and other forms of vehicles driving around your zoo, this might add a little more dynamism and a little more movement in the overhead view that just doesn't exist right now. I don't know that for sure. There are no staff vehicles in Planet Zoo right now, so I don't really know what the effect is going to be, but in my mind this might help with the feedback that Planet Coaster 2 players have had on Planet Zoo. And as we look at the future for possible features for Planet Zoo, we can also take a look at the past and see how Jurassic World Evolution 3 has implemented staff vehicles in their game. Because the concept of staff vehicles has already been a thing in the Jurassic World series for quite a while, and the current game has a whole bunch of different staff vehicles that all have their own specific tasks. You have a maintenance crew that races around and looks at things that need to be repaired. You have a mobile vet unit that will go out and cure animals. And you even have the ranger team that will go into exhibits and will check if all the animals, their health and their food is up to date and all right. In Jurassic World Evolution 3, you place down a bunch of maintenance posts and a bunch of ranger posts, and then you can connect up the rangers and the maintenance workers with the maintenance posts and the ranger posts, and in that way they can connect with the habitats that you built in Jurassic World Evolution 3. And that's for a good reason, because Jurassic World Evolution 3 does not have the habitat gates as we have them in Planet Zoo. For us, a habitat gate is the centerpiece of a habitat. It is what makes a habitat. You can only have a habitat with that gate, and without it, it simply does not work. You need to have a fully fenced area and a habitat gate for it to work. So I could see us being able to attach zookeepers and other maintenance vehicles to a habitat through the gate instead of placing down a specific object specifically for this purpose. So now that we've seen how Jurassic World Evolution 3 has handled this topic, how could this work in Planet Zoo 2? And for starters, for me personally, I hope it's going to be more than just cars. Because when I go to a zoo, the thing that I get to see is this. Simple bicycles, nothing fancy, nothing special. The majority of zoos that I've been to, zookeepers just ride around on bicycles and they have like a bucket at the back of their bicycle or sometimes at the front. And that's the staff vehicle that I see the most when I go to zoos. And I genuinely hope this is something that can be added to Planet Zoo. It won't fix the movement issue that I mentioned earlier from the Planet Coaster 2 fanbase, but I think this is such a cool thing. And we can have something as simple as this, or something that's a little bit more complex with a cart integrated into the bicycle or actually attached to it through a attaching instrument like you can see here in this picture. Honestly, for me, this is what I would love the most, and maybe that's just because this is a very common feature here in zoos in Europe. I think that is just adorable. It helps with the overall budget feel of a zoo. If every zoo has cars driving around, that doesn't really work for me. So yeah, I really hope we get these kinds of bicycles in Planet Zoo 2 as a staff vehicle. But of course, it shouldn't just be bikes. I also know that there's multiple ways that staff members transport themselves in zoos, even in European zoos. And the most obvious example of them all is of course the golf carts that we see in so many zoos. And I think this is a thing that Frontier will probably think of if they decide to add in staff vehicles in Planet Zoo 2. I would assume that this is the thing they were going to add if that is what they wanted to add. So I hope that we get something like this, something that does look relatively realistic, kind of like how the staff vehicles in Jurassic World Evolution 3 also look quite realistic. But I also hope that we'll get a few variants. It would be cool if we have something like this and maybe a slightly different shape, or something that's smaller or something that's bigger. Like the small buggy that the maintenance workers have in Jurassic World Evolution 3 would also work for me. Just having the option to switch things up between different zoos, between different zoos that have different budgets, that would make things for me. I hope that we get this kind of customization that these games are known for. And if I get to be really bold, and if I'm allowed to dream really big, then maybe I also want staff vehicles for the transporting of animals to a habitat. Because honestly, how cool would it be to see a truck driving around with an elephant inside of its trailer at the back? That would be freaking amazing. Now, I know this is a very bold wish. I know this is something that probably might not even work, or that might not even be that interesting once you actually introduce it into the game. But for me, oh, I would love this. This would change the whole running around with a small crate that with an elephant inside into something that feels much more realistic and much cooler to watch. So yeah, if I am allowed to dream, if I'm allowed to go bold on this feature, then this is something that I would love to see in this game. This is such a small little detail, so for me I will be perfectly fine if this is not included, but man, if it is, I would be so happy. And I want to thank everyone for watching this video. It really means the world to me, so I really appreciate it. Do anything you want to do, like, comment, subscribe, tell me which topic you would like to see in one of the future videos, and I hope to see you soon in another episode of The Road to Planet Zoo 2.